What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another Shadowlands video. How are you all doing? We have arrived. We have made it through all the builds for Shaman, heading into 9.2, and we have finally arrived at the tier list. I spent the last couple days making this silly thing, but it's here. We made it. We got it. So get excited. We are going to rank all of the Shaman builds. We're going to rank Enhancement and Elemental. We've got them all here. I actually even have a Resto Shaman build. Haven't even done a Resto Shaman video yet. I actually will do one after this, but it's not. I'm not going to do a Resto Shaman build based on what the spec does in general, but I'm going to do one based on how much damage it can put out in 9.2 because I think that's going to be really significant. But grab your coffee, kick back, relax. We are going to go through every single build here, and we're going to talk about where I think they line up on the tier on the tier list, not the tier set list, the tier list. Now, I need to go over the categories really quick here. Understand what these categories are doing here. So, first of all, it is not just best to worst. Okay, it's not just like this top one here is the best thing and this is the bottom down. I mean, the UNFORCH category is definitely the bottom actually. This stuff down here is not good, but off healing is its own little thing. Let me go through these, okay? So we're going to start with Burst AoE. Most of these categories are going to be based on Mythic Plus, not rating. Now, there is some help here, though, in terms of if you take the best single target combination here, that's probably what's going to be really good for raid, because raiding tends to be single target focused. So keep that in mind. But this is, generally speaking, it's going to be a little bit more focused on Mythic Plus, but there is some raid stuff in here as well. Now, the categories go Burst AoE at the top, and we've got Strong Sustained AoE. We have Single Target plus AoE, so these are, generally good. They're, all around. They're not going to be as good as these big AoE ones on AoE, but they're not going to be as bad, and they're not going to be quite as good as the best Single Target one on Single Target, but they're going to be good for both. And they're pretty versatile. This category here is basically saying, if you are a raider if you're a person, going into 9.2 and you're going to be doing Mythic Plus and raiding with a guild, then this might be one of your better options because it'll help you do both. Best single target, of course, this is the raid category right here. Boom, boom, boom. Funnel, which is an interesting idea and is something that Enhancement Shaman in particular is very capable of doing now. Very, very capable of funneling. What's going to be the best on week 1? Literally 2 days from now. Or no, tomorrow. Right? It's tomorrow, guys. Tuesday for the for the US and Canada. Sorry, you European people. I'm so sorry. But it is going to drop tomorrow. So what's going to be the best the best build going into tomorrow? What should you take in the first? Because remember, we're not getting double legendaries until 28 days, 25 days, and the tier set bonus is only going to happen after week 1, right? Not until week 2. And you have to get lucky still. So anyway, what's going to be the best when you walk into Zereth Mortis? What's the Resto Shaman one? Which covenants in particular have really, really good off healing? And then what's just bad? This is UNFORCH down here is just bad. Let me get this going over here. Let's get Twitch going, see if anybody's on. Let me just pull this up. Let's get Twitch going, see if anybody's on. Let me just pull. Hey, Flocked, how you doing, buddy? Good stuff, man. Yeah, Witch Doctor Wolfbones. That's awesome. Oh, let's mute it. It sounds terrible when I'm talking twice. Okay, let me get this cheat sheet over here for me. You guys can't see this, okay? I don't want you seeing this. Also, at the end of this video, I have a very special announcement. Don't let me forget. Let me actually write it here so I don't forget. Flock, don't let me forget the announcement at the end. It's this thing here. Okay, good. We got it. Okay, let's get into this. So, I've made all these little icons. I know this looks really messy, but I've made all these icons up. I made them the other day, last couple days. And these black squares just represent a in between a build, because there's multiple builds on multiple rows, and I don't want to just stack them all up next to each other. So the black squares are going to represent a gap in between each build, okay? Just so you guys understand how that's kind of working. All right? Hey, Steel, how you doing, buddy? Here we go. Let's get into this. We are going to get into the tier sets. I keep saying tier set. It's the tier list. Oh, yeah, okay. I'll do that, Flock. That's a good idea. Okay, let's get into this. So, burst AoE. Now, the burst AoE category, let me clarify once again. This is the category that essentially says it has big, like, cooldowns. And we're talking about, like, 1-minute cooldowns. Cooldowns that you can just plop down, and they're going to do a huge chunk of AoE on a large pack of enemies. And yes, we're mostly talking about, like, uncapped AoE. So what's going to be the biggest burst, sort of uncapped AoE? Well, of course, we're going to have Echoes of the Great Sundering plus Night Fae. I think that this is going to be like the premier sort of big burst AoE for Elemental Shaman, of course. This is the first build that I would have in mind is having, because Earthquake, of course, is uncapped AoE. That's number one, right? And then the Night Fae gives you all this crit. So you cast your Storm Elemental, and then you're going to cast Fey Transfusion to get all that crit, 24% crit, and you're going to reduce the cooldown of your Storm Alley. And then you're going to be using the Echoes of the Great Sundering legendary to power up your Earthquakes and make your Earthquakes do massive amounts of AoE damage in a huge big burst that's going to kill multiple enemies. I mean, it's uncapped as well, right? So that's kind of the big takeaway there. That's why I'm putting it up here in this category. I think for Elemental Shaman, this is your best big burst AoE combination that you can take into 9.2. Now, once again, of course, we're not going to get double legendaries for a while, but this is it. You take Echoes of the Great Sundering in there. If you're doing Mythic Plus only, if this is like your only, you're like focusing hard on Mythic Plus, this is absolutely the build that's going to be the biggest burst AoE. You get your tank pulls together, packs of 20 guys, and you're going to drop your big cooldowns here. You're going to drop your Fey Transfusion into your Echoes of the Great Sundering, and you're going to do huge burst damage. Now, for Enhanced Shaman, of course, it's going to be Doom Winds, and I'm putting Necrolord up here as well. So the reason that we're doing that is because I think that this is, Doom Winds in general is the only real uncapped source of uncapped AoE that we've got in the game for Enhancement Shaman, and I think the Necrolord playstyle actually lends itself to that big burst window as well. You could also substitute in here Night Fae if you want to, okay? So just remember, I'm going to post it like this, but you can mess around with the covenants. But of course, for Enhancement Shaman, it's going to be Doom Winds. You run into a pack of 20 guys, you drop Doom Winds, you channel, or you run into a pack, you summon your wolves, channel Fey Transfusion for an initial burst, and then drop Doom Winds for the extra burst. Or you run in and you do a Flame Shock into a Lava Lash to spread that around, and then you drop, you build up a little bit more Maelstrom, like you press Crash Lightning like once, and then you have 5 Maelstrom stacks. You drop Doom Winds plus your wolves first, I guess, into Doom Winds, and then you press your Lightning Bolt from the Necrolord Primordial Wave buff, and you have like 100% haste in your Doom Winds window. That's what I'm going for here. And it's going to be like large, uncapped AoE. Your Wind Furies are going to be going off like crazy. Your attack speed's going to be through the roof. And that's going to be on a 1-minute cooldown. So, of course, this is just the big burst AoE that's coming in for Enhancement Shaman, in my opinion. That's it for this category. So the two big burst AoEs. Essentially, it's like the only uncapped AoE we have in the game. It's amazing on the huge pack that gets pulled. It's going to be doing massive amounts of damage for those 10 to 20 guys that you pull. That's the Elia build, and that is the Enhancement Shaman build. Now, let's move on to the next category. Strong Sustained AoE. What does this mean? This basically essentially means your pack-to-pack-to-pack damage is going to be very high no matter what's happening. You have some cooldowns, but generally speaking, most of your cooldowns are up on every single pack, and it's going to be really strong, sustained AoE damage. And of course, the first one on this list is going to be Elemental Shaman plus Venthyr. That's the best one, in my opinion. Now, there is going to be a slight ranking if we go left to right. So again, we're not really ranking things top to bottom because these are different categories. But within each category, I believe that I'm going to rank what I think is to be the best build on the left and then the worst build in that category on the right. Now, it doesn't mean that it's like horrific or bad. It just means it's the numbers, I think. I think the numbers are going to be a little bit better on the ones that I put on the left here. Okay, does that make sense? So just so you guys are understanding how I'm doing this little system here. So that's that. Now, we're putting, of course, Skybreakers plus Venthyr. So Elemental Skybreakers plus Venthyr, I think is going to give you really strong sustained AoE damage, right? You put out your Fire Elemental, and then you drop Chain Harvest, and it spreads all the Flame Shocks for you, and it reduces the cooldown of Chain Harvest to like a 15-second cooldown. This is the Chain Harvest build. It has strong, sustained, pack-to-pack-to-pack AoE damage because your Chain Harvest is literally up every 15 to 20 seconds with this build. You put 5 Flame Shocks out, you add 1/6 Flame Shock on your own, and then you just go into your regular rotation. Stormkeeper into Chain Lightning, Earthquake. You do all that stuff. All this damage is ticking passively in the background. All your Flame Shocks are critting for massive amounts of fire damage, and they're reducing the cooldown of Chain Harvest. And every 15 to 20 seconds, you're pressing Chain Harvest again. That is sustained AoE on a pack-to-pack basis. You can do massive amounts of damage on every single pack. You won't do the same amount of damage as these guys up here on the initial pack where they have their cooldowns up, but on the next pack you'll do more damage, and on the next pack after that you'll do more damage, and then when they get their cooldowns back up again, they're going to beat you again on that pack. Do you see what I'm saying? They're going to be doing like this, and you're just going to be like up here doing this the whole time, and you're not quite as high as they are, but you're right there doing the sustained amounts of damage. So that is, I believe, a very, very strong build for Elemental Shaman, and that's the sustained version. Now, what's the enhanced version? Well, of course, it's the same thing. It's just, oh, I got to put a black square to divide it. It is the exact same thing. It's just that you're enhance. Literally the same thing. You're going to take Skybreakers as enhance, and you're going to take Chain Harvest, Venthyr, and you are going to have the same kind of damage profile. Big Flame Shocks going around. Now, the cool thing about Enhanced Shaman is that you're going to take something like Lashing Flames. Let's switch over to here for a second. You're going to take Lashing Flames. You take this talent here because it's going to buff the damage of your Flame Shocks, right? I guess I'll just stay up here. So what you do is your Skybreakers, right? So you press Chain Harvest, it spreads 5 Flame Shocks around, and then you're going to get Lashing Flames, Hot Hands, Fire Nova. That's going to be your build. You're going to wait for a Hot Hands proc. With your Lashing Flames debuff, you're going to tag every enemy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tag them all that have the Flame Shocks on them. Those Flame Shocks are now going to do double damage. And they're going to be critting for 50% more. And then all those crits are going to reduce the cooldown of Chain Harvest. So the damage becomes this passive ticking fire damage, and then you're going to detonate it with Fire Nova, of course. So this is very strong. I mean, Fire Nova has a 12-second cooldown, 15-second cooldown. Hot Hand, you're waiting for that to proc, obviously, but it procs a lot more now because we have a lot of haste. Lashing Flames is something you can apply all the time. There's no cooldowns here except for Chain Harvest, and the Chain Harvest cooldown will be like a 15, 20-second cooldown. So, again, strong, sustained, pack-to-pack-to-pack damage. You can buff all the fire damage with Lashing Flames. You can detonate all the Flame Shocks with Fire Nova. That's how it works. Okay? That's that build. Now, let's move on. There's actually another build in this category. Let's get a black square up there. We're going to actually talk about this build here. Primal Lava Actuators plus Necrolord, which is Splintered Elements. Now, this one might look strange to you guys because Primal Lava Actuators is going to be a little bit more single target damage, and that's true. But when you pair it up with the Necrolord playstyle, it actually provides a ton of extra AoE damage. And I was just testing this yesterday. I wanted to confirm that this was actually true, but it is. I was pulling 18 to 20k sustained AoE damage on the Borealis dummies. I was hitting 5 targets, so you can actually get more. You could have 6 targets, and this will perform even better. And essentially, you're going to Flame Shock and then spread that Flame Shock with Lava Lash, and then you're going to press Primordial Wave, which adds 1 additional Flame Shock. And then you'll have 5 Flame Shocks out. Then you're going to hit your Lightning Bolt, your Primordial Wave infused Lightning Bolt, and it's going to hit all 5 targets. It goes zap, 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 right? So that's actually AoE damage right there. Your Lightning Bolt now cleaves to those 5 targets. Then you get 100% haste. And it means all your Flame Shocks are ticking quicker. They actually tick faster if you have more haste. So that's pretty crazy. And then you essentially just do the same rotation. You're doing Lashing Flames, you're getting Hot Hand procs, and you're detonating everything with Fire Nova. So it's the addition of the Lightning Bolts. It's these cleave Lightning Bolts that do a lot of extra damage because they're infused, Maelstrom infused lightning bolts, right? And on top of that, Primordial Wave actually buffs the lightning bolt damage as well. It does 150% of its normal damage. So, like, you press lightning bolt once in this scenario, and if you have 5 or 6 flame shocks out, it's going to do, like, 60, 70,000 damage. Just one press of your lightning bolt. And then, on top of that, you've got all those flame shocks rolling. You're going to detonate those with Fire Nova as well. And then you're just going to be putting all that damage into big, big Lava Lash hits. So this actually does work in AoE. I'm putting it down the tier a little bit because I think that these are better for the sustained AoE damage, but this does work. And it's because of those extra lightning bolts that are cleaving all those enemies. It's very, very cool. On top of that, you're obviously getting the haste bonus. Okay, there's one last build to put in here. Let's put a black square there. And we're going to do Deeply Rooted Elements plus Venthyr. So this one was the video that I just did yesterday, I think, right? So this build is actually really cool. I'm putting it all the way down at sort of the bottom of this tier only because of its inconsistency. Because Deeply Rooted Elements only has like a 7% chance to proc when you press Lava Burst. I still don't think it's a bad build, though. I think it's genuinely a good build, and I think it genuinely can work in Mythic Plus. I really do. I took this into a 9.2 dungeon. I've taken it into a couple different dungeons on the PTR when I had the chance to finally get into a dungeon, and it actually works. Over the course of the entire dungeon, you will get all kinds of procs on Ascendance. If you don't know what Deeply Rooted Elements does, every time you press Lava Burst, you have a chance to trigger Ascendance. And then Ascendance will send Lava Bursts at all of your targets that have Flame Shocks on them. Well, guess what puts Flame Shocks on all the enemies? Chain Harvest. So you're going to press Chain Harvest. You get 5 Flame Shocks out there. Add one additional Flame Shock, a 6th one. Those Flame Shocks are all reducing the cooldown of Chain Harvest, first of all. So you have 15 to 20 second Chain Harvest cooldown. So that's additional AoE. And then you can throw in Lava Bursts. And you saw me in the video yesterday. If you watched it, I was just sending Lava Bursts, even in an AoE situation. Because if you get Ascendance to proc, then it will send Lava Bursts at all 6 of your Flame Shock targets, and they all have a chance to overload with Elemental Overload from Shaman. So it's a really fun and hilarious playstyle if you get multiple procs in a row. It's like just crazy. It'll just be meatballs just flying all the time. But of course, the only issue is that if you don't get any procs, it feels really bad, which is of course why I'm putting it at the bottom of this sort of tier, because I actually think it's very strong. Even if you only got one proc every like 30 seconds or every 40 seconds, if you only got one proc, it would still be actually good. It's still good sustained AoE damage. And you're still going to take things like Stormkeeper, and if you're actually get an Ascendance proc while you have your Stormkeeper buff up, as you saw in my video yesterday, you can funnel the Stormkeeper damage into Lava Beam, which is amazing. And then you get overloaded Lava Beams, which Lava Beam is a better version of Chain Lightning. It actually, every time Lava Beam jumps to a new enemy, it does 10% more damage. A Chain Lightning, every time it jumps to an enemy, it doesn't do any extra damage. So anyway, that's that build, and I think it's actually a lot of fun, but it is at the bottom of this tier list because it's inconsistent, okay? Let's move forward into single target plus AoE. This, again, is the overall most versatile row, in my opinion. The builds that are in here are going to be really versatile in terms of what they're able to pull off. You could take this into your first couple of weeks of the new patch when you don't have a tier set yet and you don't have... sorry, not when you don't have a tier set. Once you do have some of your tier sets and legendary combinations, if you're still find yourself in the situation where you're rating, you know, normal or heroic with your guild and you're also pushing Mythic Plus into like plus 20s or whatever every single week, these builds are probably for you, because we're not all going to have the amount of time or resources to craft each specific legendary for each specific situation. That's just unrealistic. So these builds help to bridge the gap there. They're saying, hey, this isn't the best on single target, it's not the best on AoE, but it will meet you in the middle and it will accomplish both in the best way that it can. So the first one that we're going to have here is, of course, Primal Lava Actuators and Venthyr, Chain Harvest. So I do think that this one is going to provide both. First of all, the Venthyr spreads Flame Shocks, as we just said, and then those Flame Shocks help if they get crits. We don't have Skybreakers here, but the Flame Shocks can crit all on their own. If they crit, they'll reduce the cooldown of Chain Harvest. So in this build, your Chain Harvest is more like a 30 to 35, sometimes 40-second cooldown. I would say on average it's a 30-second cooldown in this build instead of a 15. So That's extra AoE. All the extra free flame shocks are more AoE damage as well. Then you're going to take Primal Lava Actuators, and all those flame shocks are going to feed into your single target damage. So you're going to take all that extra, they're going to buff up the damage of your Lava Lash very, very quickly, and you can feed those Lava Lashes into whatever primary target you're going for. And in particular, if it's a boss, then that's even better. Now, you're going to take the same build if you want to, but you can change up your talents a bit here. You would go Lashing Flames, Hot Hand, you could go Fire Nova, or you could go Ellie Assault if you're doing a raid. If you're doing only a single target encounter, you could do like Ellie Blast, Hot Hands, Elemental Assault. If you're doing AoE or Mythic Plus, right, you could go Lashing Flames, Hot Hand, Fire Nova. You always want Hot Hand in this build, but what you're going to alternate between is Lashing Flames, which is buffing all the flame shocks that you've spread around. But if you only have one flame shock ticking, you probably want to go Ellie Blast instead. And then you want to take Ellie Assault if you only have one target. But if you have more than one target, you want to go Fire Nova because you'll have multiple flame shocks out. So this build, again, it'll change depending on what content you're doing, but generally speaking, this is strong on both. Primal Lava Actuators buffs your single target damage. When you get a Hot Hand proc, press Primal Lava Actuators, it's crazy single target damage. Chain Harvest is going to have a lowish cooldown at about 30-35 seconds, and it's going to provide extra AoE damage for you, and all the extra AoE flame shocks are going to funnel into that single target damage. So you can see how it sort of does both for you. Okay, let's move on to the next one. We've got Witch Doctor Wolfbones. Let's get a blank square here. Witch Doctor Wolfbones plus Venthyr. So this one is a little strange for sure, because most people think Witch Doctor Wolfbones plus Night Fae to get all the dogs back, but you can actually just run the build this way. You go Witch Doctor Wolfbones, which gets your wolves back all the time. You're obviously going to take Elemental Spirits down here, and then you're going to run Venthyr. So the dogs will really help with your single target damage for sure, because they're doing extra damage themselves, and they have such a low cooldown. But on top of that, you'll have AoE damage with Chain Harvest and all the extra flame shocks that are getting spread around. You can, again, take Fire Nova. I think in almost every build for AoE, you're going to want to take Fire Nova. You could take Hot Hand, and you could take Lashing Flames. But you can also switch up this build a little bit if you want to. You could also just go Storm Flurry if you want to focus on the Storm Strike stuff. Because the Elemental Spirits, we're going to scroll down here and look at this. Elemental Spirits buff is different, right? Here's the Fire buff. All fire damage goes up by 20%. Icy Edge causes all of your attacks to deal extra frost damage. It's actually 30% frost damage, I believe. It doesn't say it here, but it also slows enemies. Crackling Surge, Storm Strike, Wind Fury damage up by 35%. So all these buffs are going to be rolling all the time with this build because you're going to have the dogs on a very, very low cooldown. So you can choose which build you want to run. You can spread out your damage profile with something like Hot Hand and Fire Nova, or if you want to go single target, you can go Ellie Blast, Storm Flurry, Ellie Assault. You're going to have to mix up your talents here because it's the dogs and their enhancements, their enchantments, right, that are really dictating what you want to be doing with this build. So the Venthyr portion provides a lot of extra AoE damage, and then you can go into even more AoE damage if you want with your talents. With Fire Nova, you can even go Hailstorm. There's no direct buff to frost damage from Elemental Spirits, but your Mastery will still give you extra damage for Hailstorm if you want to run Hailstorm. And if you're going single target, you can go Ellie Assault. So this will change. You need to figure this out on your own. Do I want to go a Storm Strike focus build or a Fire build when I'm running with the dogs? Either way will work, but that's that build there. And last but not least, for the single target plus AoE, we're going to get another black square. It's another Witch Doctor Wolfbones build, but this time you're running Necrolord. So this is actually really amazing. The Necrolord portion of this, once again, you're going to press Flame Shock on an enemy. You're going to spread with Lava Lash. Now you have 4 Flame Shocks out. Then you're going to Primordial Wave a 5th target. Now you have 5 Flame Shocks out. Then you're going to press your Maelstrom Infused Lightning Bolt while your dogs are out. You cast your Feral Spirits. Then you press that Lightning Bolt. And now you and your dogs have 100% haste for 10 seconds. If you get a reset on Primordial Wave, obviously, once the haste buff goes off, you just press it again, and you get 100% more haste because all those lightning bolts are cleaving every single target that has a flame shock on them. So this one's really, really fun, and you can give the haste buff to your dogs, and they will attack even quicker. And with the new tier set bonus that's coming in, your dogs' attacks have a chance to give you Stormbringer, right? Which is going to reset your Storm Strike and make it do more damage. So with this particular build, you could shift really hard into a Storm Strike focused build and just sort of hope that you don't get too many Fire Dogs, basically. What you could run here is go Ellie Blast, Storm Flurry, and Ellie Assault for single target, or go Ellie Blast, Storm Flurry, Fire Nova, or Hailstorm, one of these two for AoE, if you're in Mythic Plus. Once again, this is the versatile row. You pick and choose what you want to do, but this buff that the Necrolord gives you to the Wolves, if you have the 4-piece bonus for the tier set, it's going to really enhance their ability to get you your Stormbringer proc. So, like, basically, Storm Flurry and Ellie Assault become, like, super huge there. If you have the 4-piece tier set bonus, it's kind of insane how fast the dogs are attacking and how many procs they're going to be giving you, how much Maelstrom they're going to be generating, all that kind of stuff. So this works really, really well. Once again, with the talents, you need to pick your poison, whichever way you want to roll. You can spread your damage profile and get like fire damage and Storm Strike Wind Fury damage, or you can just go hard on one of them and hope that you don't get the other dog, right? Okay, that's that row. That's the versatile single target AoE row. Remember, if you're going into the next patch and you have a team, you have a Mythic Plus team and a Raid team, these are the builds that will actually serve you really well for both pieces of content, okay? So that's that row. Now, let's go into funnel. This is a little bit more of a specific row. We're kind of done with the obvious rows. These are like the two big AoE rows, and this is the single target AoE row. Oh, sorry, I'll get to the best single target row first. Let's do that one first. There's going to be two builds in here. So let's start with Witch Doctor Wolfbones plus Night Fae. Of course, this is sort of the premier, what people are talking about as being the most popular single target build moving into 9.2. You're going to summon your Feral Spirits, and then you're going to channel Fey Transfusion, and your Feral Spirits are literally going to be back off cooldown again. You're going to summon them again. Then you're going to have 4 dogs in the opener of any single raid fight. This is basically, we're going to talk exclusively about like raid fights here. So if you think about like, there's a bunch of new fights in the raid that are almost entirely single target. There's Skolex, there's Halandris. Skolex is like the big worm. Halandris is like the big tank-looking thing. Anduin is mostly single target. There are some ads there as well, but there's a lot of fights that are just going to be single target. DeSausage is single target. So this build, you'll get to ramp up all the wolves, all kinds of wolves. And whenever Fey Transfusion's off cooldown, you're going to get 36 seconds or... no, 54 seconds off of your wolf cooldown. So, like, you do need to be a little bit careful how you manage the Fey Transfusion cast, because if your wolves are just about to come off cooldown, make sure you press them again before you Fey Transfuse, or you're wasting literally all the cooldown reduction that you're getting. On top of that, you're getting crit. So, you're giving your dogs crit. The whole package is crit. It's really, really cool, and it's really good on single target. Once again, I think I've talked about the talents before, but you'd probably want to run something like Forceful Winds or Ellie Blast into Storm Flurry, into Ellie Assault. That's kind of the build you want to run, and you have to run Elemental Spirits, of course, and you're really just hoping to fish for a Lightning Dog or a Frost Dog. You don't really want a Fire Dog, but unless you want to run Hot Hands, you could do that as well. If you do run Hot Hands, then you're accounting for the fact that you might get a Fire Dog, right? So this is the premier single target build. If you're only doing Raid exclusively, you should go craft this one right here. This is going to do tons of damage. You'll probably get like 15k sustained single target damage for like for the opener, maybe 20k for the opener, and then you'll sort of plateau down to like 11 or 12k by the end. It's really, really good. Okay, the next pure single target build, this is the only other one that's in the mix here, and this is of course an elemental shaman build, and it's going to be Wind Speakers plus Necrolord. The Wind Speakers legendary, of course, says when you cast Earthshock, you reset you get a Lava Surge proc. You reset Lava Burst, and you can cast it instantly for free. So this is really, really good. I think you'll get about 10 or 11k single target damage with this, and the Necrolord serves to boost your haste value. When you put Primordial Wave out and you press Lava Burst, then you will get like 10% haste if you have that one target there, which is really, really good. Any haste for Ellie Shaman is really, really strong. So this build's really, really good. The only other way you could run this is, of course, as Night Fae if you want to. And you could go with something like Naya, or you could go Dreamweaver, that's Soulbind. And then you will get like the haste buff going. Let me look I'll just show you really, really quickly. Let's switch over to here. We want to look at... Oh, they don't really have it. Anyway, yeah, that's fine. They don't really have it here. That's not what I was thinking. I need to find the other site. So the point is, you would take Dreamweaver basically as Night Fae, and then you put that patch of flowers under your feet, and you get a bunch of haste. That's also another way to do it. So both of these are strong, and I think for Elemental Shaman, this is looking like the best way to go. There is another, also something to be said for Echoes of the Great Sundering in single target. It's actually performs fairly well, but I think Wind Speakers is going to beat it overall, and if you're looking for a pure raid scenario where you're an Elemental Shaman, you're going to want to go Wind Speakers, and then you're going to want to go, I would say Necrolord, but you can also do Night Fae. Those are both perfectly fine, okay? So those are the builds for the best single target heading into the new Sepulchre of the First One's raid. Now, let's look at funnel builds, and funnel builds sort of try to accomplish a very specific thing. This is where we're going to fit in, this is the one time that Legacy of the Frost Witch gets in here, so we'll put that up there. Boom, boom. So Legacy of the Frost Witch plus Necrolord, and what I'm going to say here, again, the funnel category says we're going to take all of our resources that are out here, we're going to spread a bunch of resources like AoE Flame Shocks, and we're going to funnel those Flame Shocks into a particular damage source. Or we're going to take, in this case, the Necrolord lightning bolts that are going out, and we're going to convert all that haste into one single target attack over and over and over again that does tons of damage. In this case, it's Legacy of the Frost Witch, which obviously when you spend Maelstrom, you get a reset on Stormstrike. So with this build, you're going to want to run something like Forceful Winds, LE Blast. You have to run Storm Flurry and LE Assault. That is the build right there. You run these two, and then you're just going to be pressing Storm Strike after Storm Strike after Storm Strike after Storm Strike. You almost never even press Lava Lash in this build, and it's really, really crazy. So you start a fight by pressing Flame Shock into Lava Lash. You spread it around. Then you Primordial Wave something. Now you have 5 Flame Shocks. You Lightning Bolt all those Flame Shocks, and then you funnel all your Storm Strikes into one target, and it does a ton of damage. This is like for priority targets that are going to kill your group. Priority targets like in Necrotic Wake, the guys that stun you. Drain Fluids, those guys. Or Rebellious Fist. I remember the name! The Rebellious Fist guys from Spires of Ascension, right? Those guys are really dangerous. Or in Theater of Pain, there's tons of areas in Theater of Pain, like the entire wing that, the guy that summons the totem on his fight that slows you down, his entire wing is made up of, like, mini boss fights that are all like single target focused but have like some adds. So you could take some of the extra Flame Shock damage, get those lightning bolts out, and funnel that damage into a single target with all your Storm Strikes on something like a Theater of Pain. So that's what this is good for, and that's where it's going to help you. Now, let's put up the black circle. The other one in this of course is going to be the Primal Lava Actuators build, which I believe is actually better at doing this than even the Legacy of the Frost Witch one is. So this is similar to single target / AoE. They actually accomplish a very similar goal. And again, this is much more versatile than this build is. What you're basically doing, once again, is setting out your Chain Harvest, which adds all those Flame Shocks. All those Flame Shocks will boost your Lava Lash damage through the roof, and you funnel that Lava Lash damage into one target. Now, where I would say is different with this build is you're not going to take Lashing Flames because you're not focused on spreading your Flame Shock damage around. Instead, you're going to want like LE Blast to funnel even more damage into a single target. So you go LE Blast, Hot Hands, maybe LE Assault. If you're in Mythic Plus, you're just always going to want to take Fire Nova probably, right? But you can go LE Blast, Hot Hand, Fire Nova instead of going Lashing Flames. And that will like give you even more ability to funnel into one target. And that's kind of the idea of this build. So yeah, you spread Flame Shocks, they boost your Lava Lash damage, you spend that Lava Lash damage into that one target, and you nuke it down so that it doesn't disrupt the rest of your group or hurt anybody, right? That's how that's going to go. Those are the two funnel builds. So we're through basically most of the builds. These are most of them right here, okay? We're going to get into kind of the special categories here right now, though. So what's the best, like, legendary to be taking into 9.2? I'm going to say, I mean, this is what I'm going to be running. I'm going to be running Primal Lava Actuators in 9.2, and I'm going to be running it right on week 1. And the main reason why is because of the baseline changes that were made to Lava Lash. You've been hearing me talk about it in this video. Lava Lash, when you press a Flame Shock and then you press Lava Lash on something, it will spread that Flame Shock all around. And that is a new change that's coming in 9.2. We did not have that until 9.2. And so that's amazing. Like, that's really, really good for our build. It immediately gives us more damage, it immediately makes us more viable, and it immediately makes Primal Lava Actuators a more enticing legendary. And so I think heading into week 1, day 1, tomorrow, when this goes live, I'm going to be taking this into Zereth Mortis because we're not going to have tier sets and we're not going to have double legendaries. You're not going to have double legendaries for like 25, 28 days. You're not going to have your tier set for, like, realistically speaking, like 2 to 3 weeks maybe, if you're really pushing the game. If you're not really even playing that much, it's going to take even longer. So I really, truly think that Primal Lava Actuators plus, I'm just going to drag this over here. I forgot to have this down here. Plus something like Necrolord is really strong. Even without the extra haste that comes, I really enjoy just having the Primordial Wave lightning bolts going out. They do a lot of damage. So I'm going to be running on week 1 Primal Lava Actuators as a Necrolord, and I'm going to try to carry that in to all of my content. As you can see, it's one of the builds that's up here. It's got the strong sustained AoE, but it's also has capabilities of pushing single target. It has some of that versatility as well, just because of the way that you can spread those flame shocks and buff up your Primal Lava Actuators. And then also, if you get a hot hand proc, you're doing so much single target damage as well. So this is the one that I'm going to be running in week 1, and I think it's the most versatile build heading into week 1. I think that there's a really good case to be made for Witch Doctor Wolfbones as well. You could also say if you're planning on doing mostly raiding, but also some Mythic Plus, you're probably going to want to start your week with Witch Doctor Wolfbones. Okay? Now, let's get into Resto Shaman really quickly. I want to sort of make a little note for Resto Shaman because I haven't talked about that, and I know some of you guys are going to be playing Resto Shaman a little bit. I know one person in the comments the other day was like, listen, I usually play DPS, but my team will occasionally want me to play Resto Shaman in Mythic Plus. What should I take? Well, there's 2 builds that you should run for Resto Shaman. What's happening for Resto Shaman in 9.2 is that they aren't really getting any... They don't have good, like, healing legendaries. Resto Shaman did not get any legendaries that, like, just straight up really buff their healing in a significant way. There's a Chain Heal one, but nobody uses Chain Heal. There's Jonats, which does a Riptide, an extra Riptide effect, but, like, it's not amazing. Compared to, like, the Paladin legendaries with, like, Shock Barrier, every time you Holy Shock, it puts an extra barrier on somebody that absorbs damage. Like, that's really, really strong. I don't know. There's ones for, like, Holy Paladin that changed, like, Light of Dawn healing now has a 40-yard radius instead of, like, its small little cone. Light of Dawn's like this cone heal, and instead of it healing in 10 yards, it heals in, like, a 40-yard radius. It's disgusting. Like, there's some really cool legendaries for healing for Holy Paladin, but not for Shaman. But what we did get instead was DPS legendaries. This one right here, Deep Tremor Totem. This is disgusting. This puts an Earthquake around your Earth Elemental, and it does insane amounts of damage. I was testing it on the dummies yesterday. Here's the build that you're going to want to run. One of the builds. This is like a 5-minute burst cooldown build for Resto Shaman. You will do 20k AoE DPS here every 5 minutes or so, if the pack gets pulled big enough. Earthquake is uncapped AoE, and then Vesper Totem, it's so easy for Resto Shaman to trigger the legendary effects of Vesper Totem. Remember, you have to do 3 damage abilities and then 3 healing abilities. Well, that's very easy for Resto Shaman. You know, you Lava Burst into Flame Shock, into Chain Lightning, or 2 Flame Shocks and a Lava Burst, and you're good. And then you can just Riptide, Earth Shield, and boom, you get all the damage out of this Kyrian Totem that you're going to want to get. So this is a really bursty version. Every 5 minutes or so, you'll have a huge burst window. Or you could actually run Skybreakers plus Venthyr as Resto Shaman. I know that sounds insane, but it actually works really well, and this is more of a pack-to-pack-to-pack sustain damage. On this build, you'll do like 20k DPS, literally in AoE, every 5 minutes, but in this build, you'll do like 8 to 10k sustained AoE on every single pack. Literally every single pack, because the cooldown of Chain Harvest obviously gets reduced by the Flame Shocks that you're putting out, and it all works. Even though it's an Elemental Shaman Legendary, it works for Resto Shaman. On top of that, Chain Harvest adds 5 Riptides to all the targets that it hits, and it hits really hard when it heals. So this is a 20-second cooldown burst heal that you have now that you're adding into your arsenal. I like this build a lot better than this one because of the extra healing that Chain Harvest is going to give you. Huge burst heals go out with Chain Harvest, and then it adds Riptides to everything. And then all your Flame Shocks are ticking, doing damage, and they're reducing the cooldown of Chain Harvest so you can heal everybody again. So these are the really good builds, I think, for Resto Shaman that are going to work well if you happen to find yourself running Resto Shaman in the next patch. Okay? One more category, two more. So obviously, I'm going to put all the covenants here except for Necrolord because these are all good for off healing. We've talked a lot about this in my videos, but there's tons of potential off healing here in all three of these. I think the Night Fae one's the weakest, and I think certainly the Chain Harvest one is the strongest because of all the extra Riptides it adds on top of just healing everybody like crazy. The Kyrian one is also actually very good, though. If you're playing Resto Shaman and you want to go Kyrian, the healing out of Vesper Totem is insane. It's really, really good. So unfortunately, Necrolord doesn't really have any extra healing for anybody, but these ones do. And if you really want to, if you have a Mythic Plus group that struggles with healing, or if you want to just be that extra helpful shaman that's going to bring this tool into your group, then it's really, really strong. Okay? And then down here, we're going to put the categories of Unforch. I had one extra Primal Lava actually. We're just going to put that right there. Look at that. This is just really unfortunate. The deeply rooted elements for Enhancement Shaman is unfortunately just really bad. And then the Kyrian Vesper Totem is just really bad unless you're running Resto Shaman. So for all the DPS categories, these two are just the most unfortunate of the bunch. They're just really, really bad that you're not going to want to run basically any of these. If you're running Resto Shaman, obviously take Kyrian Totem, but if you're playing Enhance, deeply rooted elements is just not that good. It's just not as good. Elemental Shaman has a much greater ability of casting the triggering ability, so Lava Burst, versus your ability to cast Storm Strike sort of successfully. It's just way easier for them to get Lava Bursts out, and it seems to trigger a lot more often for Ellie. So that's the tier list, guys. That's it right there. So, those are all the different categories. Again, we've got our big burst AoE people up here. This is uncapped AoE. That's kind of why they're in this scenario. These are cooldown reliant. So like every other pack, you're going to have this up. Not for every single pack, but every other pack. Then you have the sustained AoE people. This is like pack to pack to pack. You're going to have lots of damage. You're going to bring tons of damage. You're that high plateau. You're not doing mountains and valleys. You're kind of plateauing up here. Really, really strong builds. This is the most versatile crew right here. So you've got these things can function both in single target and in AoE. They're not necessarily going to be best at either, but they're going to serve you very well in both situations. And if you play it correctly, you can probably do just as much damage as the other builds. But this is going to be really good if you find yourself in the situation where you are having to raid and do Mythic Plus on a weekly basis. These builds will do really, really well for you. What's the pure best single target build? Of course, Witch Doctor Wolfbones plus Night Fae, or if you're Elemental, I'm going to say Wind Speakers plus Necrolord, okay? Those are those two there. If you're doing a funnel build, so you're in Mythic Plus and your team needs you to have you have a particular role on the team, which is to say you are going to funnel down priority targets in all the dungeons that we're running, this is something that you can take. You can take Legacy of the Frost Switch, or you can do the Primal Lava Actuators build that is up here. These two will both function very well. This is what I'm running in week 1. I think that Primal Lava Actuators is set up to be the best legendary moving into 9.2. I just think that all the baseline buffs to Lava Lash, Spreading Flame Shock, you just can't ignore that. It's too good to pass up. And if you do that, you'll funnel a whole bunch of extra damage into Primal Lava Actuators. So I think Primal Lava Actuators plus Necrolord or Venthyr is sort of like really strong moving into the next tier. If you're Resto Shaman, you got your big burst damage combination here with the Earthquake Elemental plus Vesper Totem, or you can go more of a consistent damage profile and tons of extra healing with Chain Harvest with the Skybreakers plus Venthyr combination. These are some really good off heals, and then these guys unfortunately didn't really make the cut. They're just kind of bad in general. So there you go. That is the tier set, guys. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching all the different videos and checking out all these different builds. I genuinely think that there's a place for each one of these different builds here on this tier list. Now, I didn't forget. Yep, thank you, Flocked. Hating on Venthyr? No, I'm not hating on it. It's fine. I just don't like I don't like Hailstorm, okay? Go away. Okay, so here is the special announcement. I'm going to throw this up here right now. We've got this. Now, this is, of course, a new Discord channel. I kind of made this up last night. I've got a bunch of different categories going here. And in the link to this video and on my Twitch as well, I'm going to now link this new Discord server that we've got going. And I would love for you guys to come be a part of it. I've invited a couple of people already just to test it out and make sure that everything kind of worked. Right now, we've got sort of a Shaman discussion area here where we can talk about different builds. I've obviously commented here and said that Deeply Rooted Elements is obviously the best build with a laughy face there. And then, there's a welcome screen here that's going to let you guys know what's going on. There's my links here, and I'm going to post even more links if new YouTube videos come up or new Twitch videos, new Twitch streams are live. I'm going to put them here so you guys can just click on it and get there if you want. And then there are, of course, our Mythic Plus groups at the bottom here, which I'm very proud of. Yeah, exactly. Here's the Mythic Plus groups. We got Mythic Scarf, we got Mythic Mugs, we got Mythic Gnomes, and we got Mythic Get Your Coffee. I don't know if I can... Oh, yeah, there we go. So we're going to add more Mythic Plus groups as we go, but I would love, in 9.2, I would love to be doing some content with you guys, okay? Oh, so many unread. I know I have too many channels here. I know. Get off. Get out of here. See? Steel, we're going to throw you into the Mythic Scarf channel right away. So I'd love for you guys to jump in here. I'm going to send out invites on the YouTube channel, on the Twitch channel. We're going to get you guys in here, and we're going to just hopefully start a really fun community here around this channel. This is where everything's going to end up being. I'm going to post like all the videos here. All the updates are going to be here. Yep, and I'm going to try and get a Discord command for Twitch. I'm not good at this stuff yet, so you'll have to give me some time, but I will get that. We will get the Discord thing going, and we're going to add way more stuff here as we keep going. But this is the big surprise for moving into 9.2. I want you guys to, let's all run around together and have fun. Let's jump in these chats and talk about stuff while we're running around Zereth Mortis. The first week, of course, it's just going to be us running around the new zone, getting to experience everything. So there's also the ability for you guys to post, whatever you want. There's a general Scarf chat here, and we can put in, post your pictures of you getting wrecked by some really cool Zereth Mortis boss or that kind of stuff. So that's it. That's the big announcement and for the end of this video, and that's the tier set list. I'm also going to post this tier set list in the Discord, right? We're going to do that. Anytime we do special stuff like this, we're going to post it in here so that you guys are up to date and ready to go. So thank you once again for watching. Thank you for all the subscriptions. Thank you for the comments. Let's keep all those conversations rolling in this new Discord channel. And that's it. Thanks for looking at the tier set video, and I will see you guys in the next one.